Sister Naima, I saw the future today in practice, not just the future, but the present. When I saw these proud young African children come up here, and one of them, he pulled out his iPod and he was doing his thing. And I kept looking at my legal pad. I started thinking maybe I'm obsolete, you know what I'm saying? But I think that's good because we're moving into the future, and we got to move into the future. We got to do the right thing. I want to congratulate Sister Jeripo Hill. Give her a round. I met Sister Jeripo when she was back. She was an entertainer. She's still an entertainer. She's
culture worker.
She's a culture worker. All right, okay. But I met her back when she was on serious business, and I would come. One of the delights of coming through Harlem was that she would be doing those programs around Malcolm X and various other programs that we used to do in Harlem, and she was just excellent. But I didn't know that she had this pregnant political vision, right?
Wow.
And she was always just passing, you know. She really was planning on doing this all the time. And so she came on down to the Mississippi, down to Greenville, and she's put together here a paradigm for us, a beautiful paradigm we must use and have to use. This is the Southern Human Rights Organizers Conference. And what it does, along with the things that we're doing with the U.S. Human Rights Network and other things, what it does, it really provides a basis for us to pull together the revolution that we need to accomplish the things that we say. You see, when we talk about, we say, what do we want? We say justice, right? That's what we say. But see, you can't have justice without a revolution. You just can't have it. We don't, a lot of times we make it more complicated than it is. And if you don't have a revolution, you can't have no justice. So what do we want? Liberation. You sure can't have no liberation without a revolution. And so what this work that we do is partially to expose where we are. And to expose what controls us. To expose who the enemy is and how the enemy is formulated. You know, they asked me recently, the newspapers in Jackson was asking me about why I wouldn't say to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I was wondering how long it would take for that to come up, right? But you know, I don't say to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America for the same reasons I don't say a pledge to the Confederate flag of the state of Mississippi, right? Because they essentially represent the same thing. They were brought together by the same kind of people. You had the flag, in fact, the flag of the United States of America was brought together by slave owners before the flag of Mississippi was brought together by slave owners. And there's nothing that's happened since that time which has convinced me that the flag of the United States of America is serious about changing anything. Right? So once we get a United States of America rather than a U.S. empire, then we can talk about having a flag which represents the people who live in the This is what we got. We have an empire here. We have an empire which is a prison house of nations. It occupies the African nation, it occupies several Indian nations, it occupies Mexicanos and all kinds of folks who have come in here who are controlled and who are occupied. So, you know, I like to talk simple when I talk, right? And sometimes this disturbs people, you know. You know how it is when you were sick, you know when you were sick. And you know, when Grandma come back, she knew exactly what would cure it. So she put some of that nasty taste of medicine, right? It wasn't complicated. You know, you go to the doctor and they give you one of these complicated prescriptions that come out probably make you more sicker than you were before you did. But Grandma just put some of that castor oil or some of that, you know what I'm talking about, right? And then you take that and it will cure you, but you didn't really want to take it. So that's how it is. It's not comfortable being cured all the time. But what we've done here with this conference is we've put together a way to bring together not only an identification of our enemies and the things that work against us, and you know we're on the right track because of the Tea Party. The Tea Party, you know, that's an appropriate name for that group of people, right?
Tea bag.
You know, I often wondered why everybody gets gets excited about the American Revolution, right? And they talk about the Boston Tea Party and all that kind of stuff. And here was a bunch of people complaining about the price of tea in Texas. Now, we were in the process of being changed from one slave master to the other slave master. And so these were essentially, and it didn't really open up any freedom to white people, because only the property owners could vote in that election. It certainly didn't open up any freedom to women, because women still couldn't vote and still couldn't participate, and it just totally shut us out. So that's what you're talking, and these are the same kind of people who are now organizing the Tea Party. They're upset because the complexion of the fella in the White House has changed. I mean, they're upset about that. You know, most astute supporters of the empire understand that that change doesn't hurt them at all. And in fact, some of them believe that it really helps them, because they had gone bankrupt on the international scale. And then people didn't believe in them anymore. So they figured if they put a chocolate color fellow in there, then all of a sudden what would happen is that they would get a better response on the international level. But there are people who are so superficial, so tied into white supremacy, that just the change of the color of the fellow in the White House has got them all upset. Right? So we know what we're up against. You know, in Mississippi, one of the women who sat on the Supreme Court, now dig this, this is the Supreme Court that suspended me. In fact, she wrote the opinion, I think, that suspended me, Bill. And she left the Supreme Court of Mississippi so that she could go organize the Tea Party in Mississippi. Right? So this is the kind of quote-unquote, we still got the Dred Scott decision working actively in the courts. But what is so wonderful about what we do, and I'm going to get right to the point, I know we have to move on, at these conferences, is that, see, what it is that one of the things that perpetuate oppression is that oppression is divvied out into little doses and sometimes big doses, but to different people in different places. So the person in Detroit who's right now dealing with a shrinking city, where they once had some kind of electoral power as far as black people were concerned, don't recognize that their problem of not being able to live in a home or losing their home is connected to the same problem that we got in Mississippi. They don't understand. They don't understand. They don't understand that. They don't understand in New York, when they talk about the labor problems they have in New York, that that's related to the problem that we have in trying to organize labor in the Nissan plant right outside of Jackson, Mississippi. And so they don't realize that the whole spectrum of white supremacy shoots up from the South, and it shoots up from the occupation of the African nation in the South and the Indian nations in the South, and that they contaminate the whole U.S. empire with the shadow of white supremacy. They don't understand that. And so what it is that we got a lot of people telling a lot of individual stories. They don't understand that there is one big story that defines the whole problem. And so what Sister Jeribu Hill and the folks who work with her and your good work has done is helped to put the problem in a situation where we can come here at a conference and we can talk about it, and we get up here on this platform, and all of a sudden we realize we were talking about the same thing. Right? This is what we realize. We're just talking about a different aspect, a different reflection of the same problem. And then we drag out this document, this unique document that nobody ever paid attention to for so many years, called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Amazing, that, isn't it? See, we were all stuck on reading the Constitution, which they didn't even really believe in themselves. Right? A Constitution which guaranteed slavery for a period of time. And then a Constitution that was interpreted for another 100 years by people who didn't believe that you should be able to go to school with white people. Right? That's the kind of thing, that old dog document that they call the Constitution. And so what we have to realize that before the Constitution, there is a universal declaration of human rights. There are certain understandings, which all of them are not recorded, that people in this world understand are the human rights of folks. And so coming here to talk about those things fuels us, unites us, makes us understand the different ways that we have to go out and fight. And so we become a common struggle as opposed to a lot of fractured struggles.
All right.
And we have a lot of ways that we reflect that. We have the Selma March that we do once a year. We have various other things that we do all over the country where we're really talking about the same thing.
All right.
And we have to continue this message of unity. We got to build on it, and we got to make sure that we take it to the streets. Now, see, I'm sitting here talking to you now. I come, by the way, on behalf of the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement and the New African People's Organization. But now I always add to that the People's Assembly of Jackson, Mississippi. Right? And every now and then, I'll even tell you that I'm Ward 2 Councilman of Jackson, Mississippi. I just kind of got a foot in that position and a foot out of that position. Right, and I'm trying to see which foot's going to get kicked out the first. Right? So I'm not quite sure about that because, you know, of course, we don't control the City Council of Jackson, Mississippi. The City Council is a battleground in Jackson, Mississippi. The government of Jackson, Mississippi is a battleground. It's not a place we control. The people in this City Council, a lot of them look like us, but they're not us, right? You have to understand that. A lot of people in the government of Jackson, Mississippi look like us, but they're not like us. And the same thing's true with Verdi. We got more black elected officials in Mississippi than anywhere in the empire. We got more than anywhere in the empire. But that doesn't mean that we have more power. In fact, we have people who often argue, well, how can you live in Mississippi? Or they say, how can you live in Alabama? Or how can you live here or there? And I often wonder, what it is, slaves on the plantation arguing about what plantation is. So it's somewhat ridiculous kind of argument. It's somewhat ridiculous kind of argument.